Hello, everyone. My name is Enoch, and today I want to talk about the philosophy of the free will defense to the problem of specifically suffering. So, in my mind, free will is kind of like the cop out to all of the suffering that goes on in the world, all of the terrible things that happen that you wouldn't think would be so regularly occurring if there was an all-powerful, all-loving God. And when you talk about this with Christians, the number one defense that you hear is free will. God gave us free will. He can't interfere with our free will. That's more important than a child being raped, is the rapist having free will, obviously. And he can't take away our ability to make choices, any of that. So therefore, all the terrible stuff that happens in the world is allowed to happen. So there's several problems with this. First of all, I don't believe in free will. I don't think it's an actual thing. If you define free will as the ability to have done otherwise, I don't think it exists. But that's a separate discussion for another time. For the sake of argument, I'm going to agree or pretend like I agree that free will exists and argue from that perspective. So the first point would be, just because God could make someone incapable of committing a heinous crime doesn't necessarily take away their free will. So for example, a criminal doesn't have the ability to fly over a city with his bare hands and flap his arms and breathe fire and kill 1 million people in an instant. That doesn't mean that God took away his free will. It just means he doesn't have the ability to do that. And just because he can't do that doesn't mean he doesn't have free will. A criminal doesn't have the ability to teleport to 1 million places and be in 1 million places at once and kill people at the same time from multiple places around the world. And again, just because he's incapable of doing this doesn't mean he doesn't have free will. He has free will to do whatever he's able to do. So the simple defense would be, God could simply make someone incapable of committing a heinous crime, and he wouldn't be violating their free will. He would just be making them incapable of doing that crime. And so you might say, well, it's not really a good defense because nobody can do those things and we operate within natural laws. But I still think it makes a valid point that just because someone is incapable of doing something doesn't mean they still have free will. So that's point number one. Point number two is that this defense of free will in no way addresses natural disasters, the sun causing cancer. You would think like, hey, maybe an all-powerful, all-loving God could have done a little bit better than that, not gave us a source of light that causes cancer. Maybe that would have been a good idea. It doesn't answer landslides, tsunamis, people being wiped out, plagues, diseases, viruses, all these things that occur in our planet and in our world that people suffer in immense ways from, totally unnecessarily, in no way has anything to do with somebody's free will. Like, this is just, it doesn't answer in any way these problems, and these problems are very difficult to address if you believe in an all-powerful, all-loving God that wants the best for his creation, for his creatures. It's like, you wouldn't expect the level and amount of suffering and terrible, terrible things that happen, like, a common example is children getting cancer, things like that, worms infesting themselves in people's bodies and eating them from the inside out, stuff like this, where it's like, maybe an all-powerful God who, if he actually gave one care in the world about his creation, could have done a little bit better, just maybe. And the last point and why this free will argument really just fails just immensely, even if you grant that free will exists, which I don't. So I think the whole free will defense is completely irrelevant and just doesn't work at all. But even if you grant that human beings have free will, if you, as a person, were to, let's say you were walking home or walking to your car in a city or something, and it was later at night, and you saw somebody trying to rape a girl. Some guy is like harassing a girl, and he's trying to, do his thing and have his way with her. Are you going to try to interfere? Because the common free will defense is God allows that, because he has to grant free will. He cannot take away the free will that he gave. He has to give them the free will, so God allows it to happen. So if you were watching this happen, would you not do something to try and stop the person? Would you seriously just stand there and go, well, sucks for her, but can't interfere with the guy's free will. I mean, we gotta let him have his free will. It's important. So, that really sucks that she's going through that right now, but he's got free will. We can't do anything about that. No, that's ludicrous. I'm assuming like you would do anything you can to stop it. You would run, you'd football tackle the guy, you'd punch him in the face, you'd kick him as hard as you can, you'd do anything you can to set the girl free, escape, and get away. Like, oh, you would do that. But hey, hold on a second. If you're a Christian watching this, isn't it a Christian's goal to be more like their God? Isn't that like one of the big tenets of Christianity is we want to be more like God? Well, God sits back, watches, and does absolutely nothing. So why don't you be more like your God? And when someone's going through something like that, sit back and do nothing, because that's what your God does. So don't you want to be more like him? And you can't take away that person's free will. We say, oh, well, we're not taking away the free will. We're just trying to stop them. Yeah, exactly. And God could just stop the person. Like, there's an idea. So if you really believe that, like, then when the next time, if someone was like beating up your kid or something, you should just not do anything about it, because they have free will. I mean, you can't take away their free will. God doesn't. I mean, if it's important enough for God to not do anything and let them get beat up, then I guess you should too, because you can't take away their free will. People got free will, man. Can't interfere with that. I just don't think many Christians would actually do that, and I think it's because they live very inconsistent to what they claim to believe. Now, I'm glad that Christians don't live consistently with what they claim to believe, because if they did, it would be horrible. It would be a nightmare. If they just sat back and said, well, my God, I want to be like God, and God doesn't do anything about it when the child's getting molested, so I'm not going to either, because I can't interfere with their free will. So explain to me why you wouldn't do that, and you would do everything in your power to stop your kid from being up, to stop the person from getting raped, to stop the whatever crime is from happening. Someone's robbing a bank, whatever, shooting people. You would do everything in your power to stop that if you could, if you had the means somehow to stop it. Like if you had a button you could press that would instantly tie the criminal with ropes and restrain them. I don't know any person that would say, no, I can't push that button. Their free will is too important. We can't interfere with their free will. That would be so ludicrous, you'd want to punch that person in the face practically. And yet, it's okay that God could instantly just hold them and stop them from doing what they're doing, and he doesn't because, free will. Oh, yeah, it makes lots of sense. Thanks for clearing that up for me. That's